I'd like to hear from different panel members that want to speak. How do you overcome issues like jealousy and possessiveness in your relationships?
That's something that I found that's really important. It's a really good question, actually. People often wonder, how do you deal with jealousy? How do you deal with feeling jealous about someone else? And you could break it down in several ways. One way is to look at what is jealousy, and break it out. Is it envy or is it jealousy? To take jealousy specifically with regards to your relationship with someone, I would talk to them, literally tell them what you're doing. Let them know what's on your mind. Let them know how it makes you feel. Include them in what you're doing and what you're saying. It's kind of hard to put it in the context of a monogamous relationship. All of a sudden you're going to just date this person. It's kind of a weird situation. But if you're in a polyamorous situation and jealousies come up, it's really important just to communicate that. Be honest with yourself and communicate that honesty with the other person.
Jealousy is a very real and normal human reaction. And within polyamorous relationships, integrity is absolutely essential. Of course, it's essential in every relationship, but if you're going to do polyamory well, you have to learn to communicate honestly, and you have to be honest with yourself. When you do that, jealousy can be worked through. It's not something that you want to get rid of, because that would be to not be human. Jealousy is a normal human reaction to things. It's called insecurity. And so you just communicate. You communicate some more. You can't communicate too much in a polyamorous situation. But when you do work through it, the bond that is created, the trust that is created, can be beyond anything that you can experience in just normal everyday life. The opportunity for growth within a polyamorous situation through jealousy is immense. It's one of the most satisfying things that I've worked with my clients with, is working through those jealousies. Where do they come from? What's at the root of them? What's the real fears?
Yeah, this is a really personal question for me, because I experienced a lot of really powerful, gut-wrenching jealousy when I first started exploring polyamory. And polyamory was something I really, really felt that was right for me to explore. I felt all of those really painful, powerful feelings. And as Cherish pointed out, working through those feelings literally changed my life. I know so much more about myself. I am so much better, so much better able to handle situations where I experience painful, difficult emotions. I'm so much better able to communicate to my partners, and I'm so much better able to take care of myself because of experiencing that. I was thinking about this question last night, and the one thing that occurred to me was that love will dispel jealousy every time. If you can have enough of it, first of all, for yourself, to be able to take care of yourself, to be honest enough with yourself, and to be courageous enough to look these really tough emotions in the face and work with them, take out of them something that's going to be useful for you in your relationships. It literally has changed my life, and I get so really excited when I hear about jealousy now, because I know that it's a tool that I can work with.
Yeah, I'm just going to add a little bit to that. Also, some more personal experience. I've been poly over 13 years with my wife, and in the early days of our marriage, that was something I really struggled with, was not really jealousy, but examining it and trying to figure out what it really was. What was I afraid of? So your question of asking how to handle this, really break it down and look at what your fears are. For me at the time, I asked myself questions, if my wife is with another man, is she going to fall in love with him more than me? Is he going to be more sexually adequate than me? I had real fears. But as the years went on and we continued to date, I realized that it really isn't a comparison. If you really think back on every partner you've ever dated or even every person you've made love to, every experience is different. And there really is no, this person was better than that person. And when you get the comparisons out of your mind, and you really start thinking like, you know, I bond extremely well with this person on this level, maybe, you know, I've got some other connections with this other person. It doesn't make person A more important than person B. They both add to your life and they fulfill you. Just like your friends do, you know, have different interests, you do different things with different friends. So when you really get to that level and you really understand that concept, it makes it a lot easier. And so over the years for myself, it became a lot easier to accept my wife being with another person and you know, realize that it's not going to be, I don't have to worry about a fear of loss or replacement. That's generally, when people are talking about jealousy, that's what they're talking about. And a lot of times it comes in the beginning of trying to explore polyamory. Although even some of us that have been advanced for a while, you know, it happens from time to time. It's natural, but usually if we've already dealt with it in the beginning, it becomes a lot easier later on. So, yeah.
The very first Poly 101 lecture that I ever went to was about compersion, and it was so incredibly important for me. And it allowed me to work through so many things. So I was just wondering if he would give us a 2-minute version of compersion.
Okay, well, compersion is a word that one often hears when discussing polyamory. It's not actually a polyamorous word. But basically what compersion means is a wonderful, warm, happy feeling that one of us gets, that I get, when I see one of my partners feeling incredibly happy and loved because they are with someone else who loves them very much. And this can be a confusing feeling to wrap your mind around at first, unless you think about it in other contexts. For example, I think about my children, and I think about how when I see them incredibly happy, when things are doing great for them, when someone is treating them well, my heart just wants to burst because I feel so great for them because I love them so much, and there's so much joy and happiness that I'm experiencing because they are happy. I have the same feeling when my partners are experiencing that joy and happiness with other people that they love. And I don't have this all the time. Sometimes I can even feel compersion when I might even be feeling a little bit jealous. It's a wonderful feeling, and it's a great reward of being poly because most of us don't think about it or experience it unless we are in a situation where we're really paying attention to all the competing feelings that we have inside ourselves. And compersion that I feel is a bonus of poly, although certainly we can feel it without being polyamorous. Does anybody else want to add to the definition?
The way I usually break it down is like it's the idea behind Christmas gifts. You know, you give somebody something and they're happy, and so you're happy for their happiness, if that really makes sense. You just get joy from their joy. It makes you feel good just to see them happy.
I just want to ask any of you that have kids, is this something that you thought about before you became poly? And if you didn't, then how did that work out? And how do you deal with them on a day-to-day basis? Did you tell them that you were polyamorous all of a sudden one day, or was it sort of more gradual, and how does that take place?
I was racking my brain how to tell my daughters about this. They're teenagers. I assumed, it was a big assumption on my part, that teenagers were all about romance and the boyfriend and the girlfriend and forever and love and all that. And I was terrified. I was shaking. I was sitting there. How do I say this? How do I say this? I sat down my eldest. I told her first, and I worked up this huge speech, and I had to work myself into it. And the whole time I'm shaking, she's like, "What's wrong?" I said, "Well, I gotta tell you something." And she's thinking like cancer. And I say, "I'm polyamorous." And there's this big silence. She's looking at me. She's like, "So?" "Well, you know what that means?" "Yeah." "That means that I have the intention on loving several women, possibly." "Yeah, that's cool. What's wrong?" It all really depends on the situation and your kids, and is it, it's obviously not something that I thought about before I had children because it just never occurred, it just wasn't in my life at the time. Again, it comes down to communication. It comes down to saying it how it is and being yourself.
My wife and I, when we first got together, we had a very young daughter, just a few months old. And one of our concerns was, how is this going to affect our children over the years? And so when we first started talking about opening up our relationship, we knew polyamory was definitely the route we wanted to go as far as a open relationship style. We talked about one of the most important things we think for children in their lives is stability. And in polyamory, that allows you to have stable relationships for long term. And we felt that if we constantly have partners coming in and going out of our lives, that might be a little more disruptive. But we've been open since day one with our children, and when you raise children like that, it becomes normal for them. So it's really not odd. It's not a concept that seems really foreign. And we explained, of course, as they got older, hey, some of your friends are going to have different parental, configurations with their relationships. But there's nothing wrong with that either. So, we definitely try to school them that, we're doing something a little different, but, as long as it's healthy, it's good, and, what they're doing is good too. We definitely respect that, because polyamory is not for everybody. It really isn't. But, for those that choose it, as long as they're practicing in a healthy manner, it's good.
I didn't tell my children until they were adults, and it came as quite an incredible shock to them. It actually came across as a bit of a betrayal, because I wasn't who I had presented myself to be. So I would not advocate doing it that way. Honesty is the best policy with your children. And as you just demonstrated, they can handle a lot more than you think they can.
I just dealt with it the same way that I deal with anything that comes up with my kids. When they ask me a question, I answer it. I'm open and honest, and some of that line between best friend and mom, and they tell me stuff and I tell them stuff, and it's good. My 16-year-old said to me the other night that he likes this poly thing. It's pretty cool, because he's got sort of two dads, but they're not really dads because they don't boss him around. He has, things you can talk to each one of them about, two different kind of guys. One's quite new, and that's pretty cool. And so he's very fond of them, and he's okay with that. But the poly group had in our living room for years and years, and they just sort of meet these people and they really want to know what they do when they're not there. That's fine. And see that poly people are pretty cool people, and nice to have around, and they just sort of grew up with them. And just dealt with it as if it's sort of, that's what goes on.
Actually, also, there's a lot of teenagers coming out of poly-raised households now, and when you talk to them, there's a lot of positive feedback about that. A lot of them are saying that they really appreciated the larger support network of having multiple adults around that are, pseudo-parent figures. If they need help with homework, maybe mom or dad was busy and they went to another partner in the relationship or whatever. So in my experience with a lot of the teens and other youth that I've spoken with, they always have positive experiences.
My kids have known since we knew, since my husband at the time and I knew about poly, and we just told them right away. My youngest daughter was 8 years old, I think, at the time, and I remember taking a walk on the beach with her and saying, well, I think that I'm really going to try having more than one partner right now. She looked at me and she said, Mom, I really think you should have lots of boyfriends. And I thought, okay. I'm glad you're happy with that. My daughters know my partners all very well. They get along with them. A couple of my partners don't live in town, so they have somebody that they can go visit sometimes. And one of my children has actually spent some time staying with one of my other partners, and that's been a really great experience for her. So it's a huge support network.